It's Thursday, so it's time for Worldview with Denis Campbell. Denis is editor-in-chief of UK Progressive magazine, of course, also author of the book Egypt Unshackled. Denis today is joining us from the United States. Denis, tell us where are you and what's going on this trip?
Well, hi, David. I'm sitting here in the White House briefing room, the Brady briefing room, the one that you see pretty much on television all the time. It has about 42 seats here. It's one of the smallest rooms I think I've ever seen. You know, you have that perception that it's going to be much bigger than it actually is on television, but it isn't. And I come to the United States. I try to come every 2 or 3 times a year, just to sort of keep a finger on the pulse of what's actually going on. I'm up on Capitol Hill later today. I'm very much intrigued, as are the folks that I'm working with, Cambria Magazine and several others here in Wales and in the United Kingdom, with what is happening with the White House being in campaign mode, as well as the effects of the fact that the Congress cannot seem to get anything done, and of course the events that occurred here just yesterday with the president coming out in favor of gay marriage.
Okay, so give us a sense for the security situation. So you showed up. Were you an announced guest? Did you just show up with a letter basically saying you're on assignment? How extensive was the screening process?
Well, you know, as I say, I'm here on assignment with Cambria Magazine, which is the national magazine of Wales, and what you have to do is you have to go through a credentialing process. And those good folks over there, the editor-in-chief and the publisher, send a letter on the official stationery of the letterhead of the magazine itself, and then that goes through the press office. Then when you arrive here, the night before of the day that you want to be here, you have to respond to essentially a Secret Service questionnaire, which they ask you a whole bunch of information, your date of birth, your social security number, all of that information, which of course they run a check on, and then you end up on the list. When you arrive at the White House at the gate, you then go through the process of another identification step. Then you have to go through metal detectors and all of the normal things that you would in, you know, just to come into a secure location like this.
How long was the entire process at the White House from when you showed up until you were kind of free to roam about?
Oh, I would say no more than about 5 minutes. If you're on the list, it's a piece of cake. If they have to make telephone calls, it becomes a much more difficult process.
All right, and any interesting questions on that Secret Service questionnaire that our audience might be interested to hear about?
I don't think so. It's just, you know, standard information that they could use through all the databases to identify your name, who you're representing, your social security, your date of birth, your country of citizenship, your address when you're going to be here, etc.
Sure. Okay,
and
so what's...
This morning that the press briefing was not held in this room because the president left this morning very early, left about 9:40 this morning. It was held in a gaggle of reporters, and it was broadcast over the loudspeakers here from Air Force One.
So tell us what's happening soon it looks like there's activity kind of getting going in that briefing room.
Yeah, most everybody here is now in the process of walking outside to the entrance. It's a staging area for then setting up in the East Room. The First Lady will be having a briefing and a joint services meeting, and the press will be covering it. So right now, most of the press are out there actually getting ready to go into the room to set up. And then about 1:25, they'll give us a final call before we can actually go into the room to see the briefing itself.
Fascinating stuff. So what are you hoping to, what are you really hoping to explore? You talked about how is the White House during campaign time. I mean, what's your plan for your time there?
Well, I'm here today because, you know, there's not a lot of activity because obviously the president is en route to his fundraisers tonight in Seattle and Los Angeles. He'll be arriving back late tomorrow night on Marine One here on the South Lawn. And then, you know, mostly I'm spending time with committee people up on the Hill. I'm really just trying to get a flavor for how much the environment has changed and how toxic everything is up on Capitol Hill. There are a number of committee staff that I've met with in the past that I'm going to be just sort of gauging to see where things are. And the surprising thing is the number of people that have left since the midterm elections. It's just incredible.
So our plan was kind of initially to talk a little bit about the French election results. So I guess since you are at the White House, the one relevant question would be, what's your sense for how the Obama White House sees the change in French leadership that is upcoming with the defeat of Sarkozy? Give us a little bit of a sense of that.
Well, I'm not really quite certain that anybody knows where it's going to be. Obviously, the real concern is on the currency, what's going to happen to the euro, what's going to happen to the eurozone, and obviously that has a huge impact on the financial situation. As far as the rest of the politics are concerned, leaders come and leaders go. I found it rather interesting that we had members of the GOP objecting to the fact that David Cameron gave such a warm toast as a head of state to President Obama. Heads of states, even if they come from differing political views, do behave in a certain fashion. I'm certain that the fact that we now have a socialist president in France is not going to change much of anything. Heads of states will still deal with heads of states. I think the bigger issue is what's going to happen to the influence of Angela Merkel and the Germans in terms of monetary policy, and what we're going to see going forward, because quite clearly the rest of Europe has said no to austerity. They've said no to the idea of, in local elections in the UK, for example, Cameron's party went down to defeat. You're seeing the Greeks saying no, you're seeing the French saying no, and it's really, an indictment of austerity. And I think that's going to be the big issue going forward in the US election.
All right, Denis Campbell, editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine, reporting this Thursday from the White House. Excellent stuff, Denis, and we'll let you get back to all of it. It seems there's so much activity there to get back to, so we won't delay you any further.
Thanks so much, David. We'll talk again soon.